Ray Allen's visit threw little clarity on the situation, and the strange voice continued.
Most people really can't keep it up for very long because you get a desperately sore throat. But young Janet could chatter away like this for hour after hour without even clearing her throat.
There was no doubt from some of the witnesses that the voice was coming from Janet herself. But it's interesting when you speak to experts about where that voice came from, that it came from the false vocal cord, that if you try and do that yourself, for even an hour or two at a time, you can start to lose your voice. And remember that she was doing this periodically over the course of several weeks for an hour straight.
I've actually played with my false vocal cords on a number of occasions, and yes, you do get very, very hoarse in a matter of seconds.
I don't believe in that.
I did witness this, the voice from Janet or wherever it came from. It just sounded like a girl putting on a gruff voice to me. I just thought it was sort of, okay, well, everything else is gone now. You know, we've finished with the Lego bricks flying around, all the chairs have flipped up, and we've done the levitation, we've had the knocking. So what do we do now? Oh, I tell you what, we haven't had voices yet, have we? Let's give that a go.
Morris was very impressed by the girl's voice, and very few members of the SPR were. It's certainly unusual. It's even a bit extraordinary, but then, of course, there are extraordinary things that people do that are not paranormal. Morris rather gave the impression she would talk for an hour. Well, not really. She would talk in short bursts, and then there'd be silence, and then somebody else would say something, and then she'd start again.
Well, aren't you ahead on that?
Bill, and I am 72 years old.
While there was some scepticism about the authenticity of the voice, support for its legitimacy came from a surprising source.
We got messages from one of the former inhabitants of the house who came up with an extraordinary statement that he said he died in the chair in the living room downstairs after going blind.
And I have come here to see my family, but they are not here now.
There's some substantial evidence to support the fact that there was a previous occupant of that house called Bill, and it did appear that his character was actually coming through Janet.
At the time, nobody purported to identify this old Bill who would talk, but later I think someone came forward and said that someone like that had lived in the house.
Maurice Gross was contacted by the son of the previous owner who'd read my book, This House is Haunted, and said, hey, that sounds like Dad. So he got in touch with Maurice Gross and listened to the tape, and he said that's absolutely true. He did go blind, and he did die in the chair in the living room. And this was long before the Hodgson family moved in, so they'd never met him. And I found that pretty compelling. I think that was evidence for what known in the trade as earthbound spirits, people who don't realise they're dead, or else they don't want to leave the last place they were on Earth.
Bill, I am 72 years old.
Could this actually be the voice of Bill, the former occupant of the house? If not, what are the other explanations?
On Green Street, there could have been countless neighbours that may have been aware of Bill's passing in that house before the Hodgsons were there, and that information could have easily got to the Hodgson family.
It's a long street, people live there a long time, the police were there, the vicar was there, you know, it would be very easy for the girls to pick up bits and pieces and absorb that, either knowingly or unknowingly.
She didn't actually say anything particularly interesting. Most of it was just sort of gabble and burble and bad language, and I think a lot of people just thought she was enjoying herself. So I've never been impressed really by anything to do with the voice.
With the phenomena becoming more and more extreme, many started losing faith in the investigation.
The family, the very basic family, mother didn't really know what was going on. She would accept whatever anyone would say to her, that this was for the good of the family, this was for trying to solve this problem, or maybe it would just go away if we all left. You don't know. But by this time, it became a laboratory, it ceased to be her home.
It was becoming increasingly obvious that Gross and Playfair's enthusiasm for the case wasn't shared by others, and a gulf was growing between the Society for Psychical Research, the SPR, and the investigators.
Well, the people who believed most firmly in Enfield were the people who actually had spent most of the time investigating, who were Maurice Gross and Guy Playfair. And there weren't many other very enthusiastic supporters among the members of the SPR. They actually, frankly, didn't believe a lot of the phenomena. And so what you might call a sort of anti-Enfield faction arose.
It wasn't easy at all, and we did get help from our own colleagues that we would have liked. And an awful lot of evidence went unrecorded because we simply couldn't get to it.
The SPR thought that it wasn't really handled as properly as it could have been. You know, the press, radio, TV all got involved. I think they thought it ended up as a bit like a circus. But the one thing that they didn't really take into account was that that the media weren't invited via Maurice or Guy. The media were all invited by other people surrounding the case. So I think they were treated quite badly actually by the SPR in that case.
The SPR set up the Enfield Poltergeist Investigation Committee to re-examine the case. One of the committee members was Mary Rose Barrington.
I was a member of a small committee that was asked to make a report on all of the people who had investigated at Enfield.
It's very unusual for the investigator himself to be investigated.
Despite the SPR's scepticism, at the Hodgson home the alleged phenomena continued. In July 1978, 10 months after the activity began, Janet was admitted to hospital for medical testing.
A friendly psychiatrist, Dr. Peter Fennick, who examined her absolutely exhaustively from head to toe and couldn't find anything wrong with her at all. That was very gratifying to know that, because we weren't really quite sure. We didn't know what kind of history Janet might have had of mental disorder and so on, but she had absolutely nothing wrong with her mind at all. Very good shape.
With a clean bill of health, Janet returned to Green Street, where things had quietened in her absence. The family now took a short holiday. In their absence, the Hodgson home was looked after by Mrs. Hodgson's brother, John Burcombe, who made the assumption that in Janet's absence the phenomena would cease. However, he was about to be proved wrong, and in spectacular fashion.
I left the house like a rocket. I was scared. I came back and said to my wife, I said, I'm sorry, no way do I go in that house again on my own. The bleeding place is haunted.
It was almost a year since the events had begun on Green Street in Enfield, and following a night of disturbances, the Hodgsons were staying down the road at the house of Peggy's brother, John Burcombe. Burcombe, as you are about to hear, returned to the Hodgson home on his own to fetch an alarm clock.
I came down to the house was in darkness, nobody was present except me. I walked up the stairs to go into the bedroom to get the clock. As I got to the bedroom door, the door opened on its own. I saw the knob on the door twist, like somebody was turning the doorknob from the other side. The door opened. As I walked in the room, the door closed behind me.
How did it close?
It just closed like the door closing and going bang. It wasn't slammed. It's just like a door closing on its own. I collected the alarm clock. I turned around, walked towards the door handle turned on its own and opened wide enough for me to walk out normally. But having this happen a second time, I must be perfectly honest, under actions from my house, that's it, and I trotted down the stairs and shot home.
Yeah.